Ladies and gentlemen, welcome back. The Ndango show, real life stories and dreams come true. As you can see, we're here in Scotland and I've got a special guest today. She goes by the name of Clare Darwish. You alright?
Yeah, good.
She's got a very inspirational story. She transformed her life and lives a dream life today. Most people write themselves off at the age where she did this, and I would like her to explain to you how this all happened. It started at this old flat, the one on the left back there. That's it. So Claire, how are you?
I'm good.
Yeah?
Yeah.
Could you tell our viewers from all around the world watching what really happened and why the penny drop? The penny drop one?
Yes, it did. I was just living hand to mouth. I was just keeping my head above the water.
Wow.
Working part-time in a solicitor's office. And I wasn't earning very much money.
How old were you at that time?
I was about 48.
48?
Yeah, so I was coming up to my 50th birthday in a couple of years' time, and I realised that at this stage in my life, although I had been working hard all my life and I was a good person and I hadn't had many lucky breaks, I was living on my own with these. I'd been bringing the boys up on my own since they were 2 and 3. So I'm realising that there's actually going to be more years behind me than I have in front
of you.
And if I didn't do something quickly, it would be over. But it actually got me to a point where I realised I cannot live like this anymore.
So you were dissatisfied and tired with what you were living.
Very tired. I was very tired. I felt bad that I couldn't have a pleasant life. We had an okay life. The kids were well fed and well looked after, but there was no money for extras. And it was just, we were existing, Sam. We were existing.
Right.
So,
it's not good when you were just existing and not living like what you feel today.
But like most people today, we get caught in this little rut in life, and we seldom move out because we're either too afraid to move out or we just don't focus enough attention on what we really want. So that night, it was in April 1999, and I sat down after the kids had gone to bed, and I took a piece of paper, a pad and a pen, and I drew a line down the middle and a line across the top, and I wrote wants and needs. And I knew that for years and years I'd been reading self-help books. I knew what I should have been doing, I just wasn't doing it. And I thought, okay, you have to give this a try. And I knew that it's really important to write down what you want, because the action of doing that brings it to life. It makes it more real. When it's up here, it gets forgotten about, gets crowded out with all the other stuff.
Right.
So I sat there looking at my wants column, and I couldn't think of anything that I wanted. And that was actually quite scary. It upset me a bit because I realised that I'm almost 50 years old and I don't know what I want.
Wow.
Why? Why don't I know what I want? So you know how we have these conversations with ourselves? I do it out loud now, but back then I was doing it in my head. And the response I got was, well, no one ever asked you, Claire. No one ever asked you. So I was one of 6 kids. We had a good family upbringing. There was no issues. Mum and Dad looked after us well. We were well fed, well taken care of. But again, there was no money for extras, so you took what you got.
Right, so no one ever asked you what you wanted?
No.
That's why you were not used to, like, maybe even asking yourself what you really want.
Exactly. So I put on my list, I want a new job, but it has to be my own business and something that I would love to do. I didn't know what it was going to be yet. And it would also help me to become financially free.
Right.
I didn't want to be dependent on anyone for my income in the future, so I was craving financial security. Now, once I had this list, there was other things on there too, like a new wardrobe. I was used to buying my clothes in the charity shop, and I just wanted to go in and buy something new.
Right.
So I had this nice list now, and I thought, the words that came to me were, what is the vehicle that's going to give me all of these things that I now know that I want? And I waited. I just waited. I sat quietly and I waited. And I thought, what is it? What is it? What is the vehicle that will bring me all these things? And it might have taken 10 minutes, no more than that. And suddenly the word property started sort of coming in. You know, it felt as if it was hitting me here. Now, obviously, there's nothing there, but I had that impression. I'm going, property.
So you talked about it like, what vehicle is going to take you to financial freedom, to having the life you want to have?
Yes.
And then you waited for like 10 minutes.
Yes, I waited for the answer.
So is that saying when you ask yourself questions, you need to relax
Be quiet.
and just be quiet?
Absolutely.
All right. Could you describe that a little bit more, because that's very important, because I think most people don't really know how to talk to themselves and get answers.
Yeah, I was asking something, somebody, you know, me, my higher conscious, God, I don't know, I was talking to somebody. What is the vehicle that will give me all of these things, everything that I want? And I am going to wait. I remember saying I'm going to wait until I get the answer. So I think in a way I was talking to God. You know, I'd always prayed and things like that.
But this time around, your conviction was more, you really wanted something.
Something higher than me, a very strong feeling. And when I got that impression, property, I remember thinking, property? But I don't know the first thing about property. I don't have any money. How am I going to get into property? And then the next thought was, don't worry, if this is the right thing for you, something will show up. And I felt calm at that point. I felt calm. So I was in a good space, and I realised it just felt I was very comfortable. I also then started to think, well, people will always need homes, the basic needs. We need food, we need shelter, we need love. So people will always need homes. So property is a good thing to get into, but I have no money. Don't worry, something will show up. And it did.
What showed up?
Within a couple of weeks of this happening, this was April 1999, I remember it vividly, I bought a newspaper, a Sunday newspaper, and that's not something that I normally do, but for some reason I bought this Sunday paper, and I think it was the Express, and I went to the business section. At the bottom of the business section there was a tiny advert that said, I can remember the words clearly, it said, start your own business, property related, low startup costs.
Would you say today, with your level of awareness, that you were being directed to this?
Well, I don't know. Some people would say that. I just know that when I read that, I got really excited. I got tingles in my stomach, and I thought, wow, this seemed to fit the criteria. I rang the number, and it was a recorded message. It was a company in London who were estate agents and letting agents, and they were selling a manual that would teach me how to become a letting agent. Now, the cost of it was £250, which I didn't have. And so I hung up. I didn't order it right away, but it just kept coming into my mind, and I thought, well, £250 is not a lot of money to start a business. And if it doesn't go well, it's not a lot of money to lose. But where do I get £250? And I think it was 2 days later I came home from work, and it was just constantly in my mind. It was just there all the time, and I thought, right, I have to pay attention to this. So I had a Visa card at that time, and my credit limit was £1,000. The account was clear. I rang up, ordered the manual, and it arrived a couple of days later. Now then a little bit of luck came into play, because my neighbour was a binge drinker, so she could go for several months without drinking, but when she started to drink, she would drink solidly for a week. And she went on a binge the same day the manual arrived. So that meant that she would sleep during the day and she would drink all night, and she would keep me awake. So I sat in my bed there, in the front bedroom, I sat on my bed with the manual and earplugs, and I just read it, and all I could hear myself saying was, I can do this, I can do that, I can do that, I can do that.
Ladies and gentlemen, you've heard it from Clare Darwish. This is a flat where it all began. She got dissatisfied around the age of 48 when she could not offer her two sons simple games that parents don't normally want to give to their kids. She took out a paper and a pen and wrote down her needs on one side and her wants on the other side. Needs are what most people want. Needs are what is very easy for you to write down, but the wants are quite difficult for most people, because if you don't know what you want, you can't achieve it. Now, she started here and things put themselves together, as she just explained. We're going now to the next stage to find out how she got out of this, how she got into properties, and what actually happened, and how she's living the dream life today, because it's all about inspiration, and it's all about the fact that no matter how old you are, age is just a number, and you can follow these same footsteps and become something in your life. Thank you very much. Welcome back, ladies and gentlemen. Real life stories, dreams come true. We're here in New Means in Scotland with Clare Darwish. She bought some properties around here a couple of years back and actually sold them. And she's explained to us how she got to this and how this relates to how she all started this journey and where she is today. So Claire,
Yeah.
could you tell our viewers who've been following us now to know how you got into this and
Sure.
what inspired you and how you got out of it?
It was about 4 years into my property investment, and I attended a training course, very good training course in London. And I realised that everything that I'd been doing from the beginning to about 2004 was right. I was doing it right, although I just seemed to be feeling my way through it, not actually, I wasn't following a plan as such. And I realised that if I wanted to build a substantial portfolio, I was going to have to move, because I had a target of a certain number of properties by the time I was 55, and I think I was 53 then, so I had 2 years.
Okay.
And I thought, I'm going to have to move some. I want to have 30 properties in the next 2 years. Now, to do that as a property investor would be quite a lot. You'd be buying 1, maybe 2 properties a month for the next 2 years, or 1.5 properties a month. That's not doable, that's not practical.
Right.
So the other way around it would be to buy an existing portfolio, or to target an area that was really run down.
Right.
Now, this particular area that we're standing in just now, I was familiar with it because I had managed 4 or 5 properties for individual landlords over the previous 4 years.
Over the previous 4 years when you had been in this business?
When I was a letting agent,
letting
yes.
agent. All right.
So I knew the area well, and I knew that there was a lot of potential here because it was a good location, but it was sadly run down. The properties were really distressed. So using the techniques that I'd learned on the training course, I just drew up a little flyer.
Which training course was that again?
It was a very well-known property training company in London. So I targeted this area, I did a leaflet drop, and I had 3 or 4 deals, I think it was 4. As I was walking around, people were calling me up, so I would just go and chat to them.
Right, people who were living in this...
and they were desperate to sell.
Yeah.
But the area was so run down, they had problems with alcohol abuse, drugs, etc. Because some of the landlords didn't really care who the tenants were. And what I could see here was the potential to create an environment for decent people who may or may not be working, but a decent home for them to live in. And long story short, I ended up buying 33 of these properties, all between 20 and 30,000 pounds.
Right, so have they got more than 33 different flats in these buildings?
Yes, there are 6 properties in each block.
Right.
So there's 24 in this block, and there's 24 in the next block.
Okay. All right.
And we took away some of the walls were broken, we replaced those. We refurbished every property.
Right.
Spent an average of about 7,000
on each property.
On each property. Right. So, and we doubled the value in a year. As we were doing them, we were just remortgaging and then going on to the next property. So we were gradually moving around.
One after the other.
One after the other.
Okay.
They were really distressed looking. They look a lot better now. I dare say they could use another.
Yeah, it looks quite good now. I mean. Yeah. Unfortunately, we haven't got the images, but I can imagine how it looked. So how do you feel when you come around now and you see this area looking so good now, and you know some of the people who live here?
There is a certain amount of pride. There's a slight disappointment because I would have loved to have held on to these properties, and a lot more could have been done. So yes, I do have a certain amount of sadness about it, but I also see it as the lever that kind of propelled me on to the next big thing, which we'll talk about later.
Very good. So ladies and gentlemen, you've seen and heard for yourself. We're talking about 4 years from when she started this journey, that she got this property with some other investors together, and they came out of it. Hope you enjoyed that bit. And Clare, thank you very much for introducing us to this, and we hope more projects are coming like this in the future.
Yeah, thank you very much.
Good.